Welcome to the Boba Joe Show.
How's it going, everybody? Hope everybody's keeping well. Hope everybody is ready to talk about fatigue, burnout, debilitating back pain. That's what we're all about today. Oh. Lego Batman giving me the signal
Watch
here.
for no reason on its feet.
It is handy though. I like those little Lego torch people. I have a couple of them.
I've got a giant one of it too on my desk. It's also a torch, which is as big as like a regular torch. It's completely impractical. But yeah, talking about Knightfall, another big 90s comic book event from DC Comics. The other big event, of course, being the death of Superman that we talked about previously in other weeks, and the Marvel event we talked about of the Clone Saga. So these were kind of the big three in the 90s. There were other stuff that happened, like Heroes Reborn and Onslaught, but they were more like multi-character inter-company things, whereas these are single main title character events.
And maybe it will be safe to say for this one, and we will obviously get into it in greater detail, of the three we've mentioned and the three we've been discussing, Knightfall may well turn out to kind of be the best and most well thought out of all of them when it comes to actually having a plan to destabilize things, but then get them back to normal by the end of everything's going on. They have an exit strategy. So a little bit more like that of Superman and a little bit less like the Clone Saga, which seemed to never end.
And there's a few different rumors about kind of how Knightfall came about. Like sometimes when they're doing retrospectives, whether it's on those DC documentaries that you can sometimes find on YouTube that used to be on DVD features and that, sometimes it's be like, well, the Death of Superman was selling so well, we needed an event for Batman, which is partially true. Like the sale was obviously doing well and they did push for an event. However, the seeds of the Knightfall story, Denny O'Neil had gone on record several times and going, well, actually, no, we'd started planning some of this stuff before any of that Death of Superman stuff. So both are true things.
I'm sure the two things just kind of came together because of you know what was happening at the time.
Actually, the other big one was Age of Apocalypse in this era too. There was a lot of these events, and in a large way, they were responsible for what a lot of Marvel and DC did post year 2000, which was more event madness, where it went overboard and they started doing too much of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and just like with the other stories we'd mentioned previously with Death of Superman and with Clone Saga, we're talking multiple issues, multiple titles, publications.
Yes, Batman books used to be their own individual books, but during the Knightfall story, they started becoming like a serialized thing, like your soap opera or wrestling. All the books were crossing into each other rather than being their own individual books, which did kind of piss off some people. If you're just a Dark Knight guy or you're just a DC Detective Comics guy, you could buy just that one book, or Shadow of the Bat, or Legends of the Dark Knight used to be an out of continuity story where it told just one-off stories that tended to be in his earlier years. That got pulled into this as well.
Yeah, everything they could. They needed to get this story done, and they spread the wealth. Thankfully for me, or people like me at least, we were blessed with collected volumes of the whole saga broken up into various
quite affordable back then too, like the paperback ones they do then.
But I can only imagine how tough it would have been to try and collect this, month to month, keeping up with all the titles and stuff, and missing the odd issue here and there. Especially depending on what part of the arc you're actually reading, there's probably some crucial moments you could miss if you miss, the wrong issue.
Yeah, I read one random issue of Batman. Well, I think it was one of the various titles. I came to Australia for like a holiday when my mum lived here the first time. It was around 93, something like that. But I went to a random newsagent and picked up a book that had Batman in it. And he looked like an old man, and he had a cane, and he was wearing a monocle and a moustache. I didn't know he was in disguise, but also it was after he had had his back broken. He was meant to be recovering. I'm just like, what the hell happened to Batman? He's an old man with a cane now and a suit. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I imagine a lot of this would have confused me if I was trying to like keep up with it. Like, you know, at the time I was a wee bit older by the time I got my hands on the trades and was able to read it properly. So yeah, thankfully I'd had a bit more of time to kind of, you know, establish that normality of what I thought Batman was. So when I was reading this, it's like, oh, this is pretty gripping stuff. Not that
Yeah.
Batman is any stranger to these type of big, you know, universe shattering events anyway, at least within his own kind of stories and stuff. You know, we've had character deaths and big deal situations happen before, but this one felt like there was something really significant going on in terms of, you know, maybe we are actually going to shift away, you know, at least for a little while, to something completely different to what we've been doing. So, you know, it's an event in itself. It like the death of Superman, there's a big build up to the main focus of the story, that of what happened. So like in Death of Superman, it was a kind of a simple kind of, you know, we got glimpses of Doomsday doing bad things on the run up kind of to the big showdown between him and Superman. With Knightfall, we get this really long, played out, sinister plan, where basically Bane is going to break the Batman, and he's not just going to break his body, he's going to break his will and break his spirit. And I think that's a key element to the story of just how, you know, run down and fatigued Batman actually is. That's why I kind of did our joking little intro there about, you know, back pain and general fatigue. Like, you, when you're reading this, and I was rereading it recently just in anticipation for doing the show, especially as an adult, you really feel for Batman. Like, you really
Yeah.
do feel for him. Like, you can, the tiredness is just like, you know, ebbing off the pages as you're reading it. And like the way he's drawn in a lot of the panels where you see him literally like slump. He's like, when he's going from place to place, he's just like, he's like a shell of his former self, you know. So I suppose to kind of give a broad strokes idea of the story, Bane hatches this plan where he's going to break Batman's will before finally breaking his body. And plan is he's going to free all the inmates from Arkham Asylum and just set them loose, let them run rampage over Gotham. And Batman is going to pretty much have to run the gauntlet of taking down each of these super villains essentially. And then by the time he gets to the end of that, that's when Bane's going to confront them. So the whole first part of the story is really just this arduous slog of Batman trying to like round up all the Arkham escapees, and
It's like us
he's
playing in video
already
games. It's like,
yeah,
fight this guy, then this guy, all in one night.
and he's getting those combos together. You know, he's been practicing those button hits, but you know he's going through the list of villains one by one and recapturing each of them. But a big crux of the story is he's already in some, Batman himself, pronouns pal, he's already in a weakened position even at the start of the story. He's already, you know, he's got a bad you know, sickness. He's got a bit of a dose, as we say over here. He's battered and bruised from all his previous encounters that he's been indulging in over the past few months, and he's just really not feeling in top form. So the timing of this whole plan that Bane hatches, like, it couldn't be worse timing when it comes to Batman, because he's already in a vulnerable position, and now he has to run this gauntlet of, you know, pretty much his most famous rogues gallery. Because like all the guys who are like freed from Arkham, it's all like the star players. You got like Joker, Poison Ivy, Two-Face, Riddler, you know, Ventriloquist, Scarecrow, like all, they're all there, all the heavy hitters. And then we also get a bunch of like, you know, I don't want to say like B tier, but you know, just maybe second string villains like, you know, Film Freak and like that Firefly guy, and all these guys are just,
Victor Zaz.
yeah, pretty much everybody he's ever had to tangle with in the past that had any type of notoriety at all. And you know, at the start, even though he's struggling, he's able to round up some of the easier ones, you know, and you know, he's gotten through it bit by bit. But the whole time this is happening, he's been spied upon and watched by Bane and his crew, and they're keeping track of just how worn down he's actually getting. So like each encounter he has with a different villain, Bane and his crew aren't too far behind. They're always watching, always taking notes, always relaying back to Bane just how worn down Batman is getting, you know, throughout these various encounters he's having with the villains. And you know, like I was saying, it's insane how much it comes across while you're reading it, how just mentally and physically drained the Batman is becoming as he's running this gauntlet. Like they really, really managed to pull that off and making you feel every blow and every kind of bit of pain with him.
Yeah, I like that it sets up Bane too as well. We see Bane appearing in that story, setting up this gauntlet, but they also did a tie-in one shot. I think I can't remember what the title was. It was just Bane or Vengeance and Bat, whatever. There was a tie-in kind of background one shot that came out around the same time as well. But it sets up the Bane is like another analog to Batman himself and Bruce Wayne, except instead of rich, he's really poor. Instead of being in a mansion, he's in a prison. But he's basically in this dungeon space, working out all the time and surviving in this like hellhole in South America, wherever it was. And the prison would like flood, and he'd have to hold on and do these like crazy chin ups and stuff to not flood and drown all the time. But it sets up there's this like crazy, dedicated, over the top, super fit, super strong character, but also that he's smart and a strategist like Bruce Wayne.
Formidable foe indeed. Go up against Batman, and one of those rare occasions in the Batverse where we will see throughout the course of the story, he knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne, and he's able to deduce that Batman is Bruce Wayne purely because of the fact that he's been observing him for so long and knows him so well that even just when he spots Bruce Wayne at some gala dinner later on in the story, he instantly recognizes him. No, that's Batman. I know just by the way he carries himself, by the way he moves, by the way he talks. I've studied this man for so long. I know exactly, you know, what he is and who he is. So there's a real, yeah, like you're saying, Bane, it's not just about him being like this super tough, strong enemy. He's also extremely intelligent and often
Yeah,
seems to be
and
one step ahead.
we don't know immediately, but he's also a drug addict and takes this chemical called venom that pumps him up. It kind of gives him like a temporary, it basically hulks out like Hulk Hogan. It's like Incredible Hulk. He gets temporarily stronger and swells up and comes down again. But also, Bane appeared around 93, but the chemical or drug known as venom appeared in 91, and it was actually something already established in the Batman comics. So they brought back the idea of this drug thing because Batman had actually used it himself temporarily, like he'd not to fight crime, but he experimented with it and actually used it on himself to see what it would do and wouldn't do, and locked himself in the Batcave and nearly went nuts until Alfred let him out again. So there's another like callback thing of this venom drug being established in the universe, and then we get the motif of the like the strappy Steiner singlet and like the Lucha Libre style mask, and the famous move that we get to that when Bane beats up Batman after he's all exhausted is of course the old backbreaker move that you'd see in the wrestling.
Yeah, he nails him with that backbreaker. And I suppose it's probably a good time to mention as well that throughout the story we've got a ton of the usual side characters who are all noticing that Batman is declining. Like Robin is really worried about him, Alfred's really worried about him. Like everybody around him can kind of see throughout the story just how much he's beginning to deteriorate and just keeps getting worse and worse as he's fighting these villains week to week. And of course, he's stubborn, so he's not overly keen on having Robin actually help him with any of these encounters. So he's taking on all this kind of extra work I suppose with the idea of kind of protecting Robin in a way. He doesn't want a repeat of like what happened with the previous Robin, because that's also playing on his mind, you know. So he's under a lot of pressure. He's not accepting help from the people around him, and he's just going day to day, night to night, doing battle with these different enemies. And you know, like I mentioned, he rounds up some of the lower tier guys, you know, relatively easily. But once we start getting to the, you know, Two-Face level, Joker, Scarecrow level, shit starts getting really serious. And like, there's a few times throughout where it's like, you get the impression that, you know, maybe even Joker or Two-Face could have taken him out before Bane even got a chance to get to him, because he is in such a bad way that he barely gets through you know, the encounters he has with the heavy hitters. Like, it's real kind of skin of his teeth, you know, slip on a banana peel, good luck, that actually nearly gets him out of some of the situations, because he's so fatigued, he's so weak, he's so mentally exhausted. He just can't do his usual kind of toe-to-toe dance that he's kind of famous for doing.
So of course the other new character part of the Knightfall, we get Bane as the excuse me, as the villain, but it also gets Azrael, who later becomes the like replacement Batman, John Paul Valley.
John Paul Valley. He's got a bad temper, that John Paul. he needs to know when to stop. And you know, because so what ends up happening is Batman, he eventually is successful running the gauntlet of villains. I believe kind of Joker and Scarecrow, I think, are the final two big ones he kind of has to take down right before he thinks everything is over, and he's gonna finally get to go home, you know. So Joker and the Scarecrow, they kidnap the mayor of Gotham, and you know, Scarecrow shoots him up with fear gas and gets him to make a bunch of phone calls basically to the various Gotham City authorities and tell them a bunch of bullshit basically to get to kind of send them on, like, you know, he sends the cops to their deaths and does all sorts of bad stuff, you know, that sends the city into even more chaos. And by the time Batman gets to the mayor, he's pretty much dead in his feet. He is able to stop Joker and Scarecrow and rescue the mayor, but like by the end of it, he is just ready to collapse. And I think even you as the reader, I even believe, like when you're reading it, you kind of think like, okay, I noticed there's going to be a big fight coming with Bane at some point, but surely there's going to be some type of reprieve for him now that he's taken down Joker and Scarecrow. But we literally get this moment in the story where Bruce Wayne, he's returned home to the Batcave. He's bloodied and battered and wrecked after running this gauntlet. Hello, Pedro. Hello, pretty boy. There's a gorgeous boy. Sorry, viewers, I couldn't help but get distracted by the beauty on the screen. My main man. But so yeah, he Bruce Wayne, he gets home. He's wrecked. He's battered. He's bloodied. He's bruised. We kind of get to see this, like, you know, the thought bubbles, the inner monologue, where he's like, oh, you know, I can't wait just to get to bed. And he's finally kind of coming around to, like, you know, oh, maybe I do need to ask for more help, and maybe once I'm feeling better, you know, I will try and include Robin and anybody else who can help with these future endeavors. And just as he gets up the stairs, he's literally got his robe on, covering his bat suit. He walks into the living room and he sees Alfred's knocked out, you know, Robin's knocked out, and there's Bane in the house, and he's waiting for him. And Batman is like, what the hell? Because another thing we should probably mention is throughout the story, as Batman is taking down the various villains, he's always looking for Bane and asking about Bane, because he knows he's the guy responsible for busting everybody out. So there has been this kind of anticipation the whole time, that Batman and Bane are obviously going to have this big showdown, but not the way it goes down here, because he's literally unmasked as Bruce Wayne when he comes across Bane in the living room, and he's kind of shocked, first of all, that Bane even knows who he is, but Bane just gives him the whole spiel about, you know, having watched him for so many years and just knows everything about him. And, you know, Batman knows, like, he's absolutely physically fucked. There's no real way he can beat him, but he has to give it a god honest try. So he puts the mask back on, and he's like, okay, Bane, come on, one more time. Let's just do this. And given the fact that, like I said, he's been physically busted up over a period of weeks and months, he's mentally fatigued. I believe he even has a broken rib from the encounter he had with, like, Two-Face. That he'd already been badly injured, even right before he walked into the room. So Bane beats the ever-living piss out of him. Like, he just, like, any blows Batman is getting on him, it's like almost drawn the way, if you ever fought in a dream where it feels like your punches are like nothing, like that's what it feels like when you see Batman, you know, taking on Bane. And so any blow he lands is basically nothing. And Bane, he beats him down and beats him down and beats him down until finally we get that awesome moment, that fateful moment where he rises him up and then he picks up Batman and he brings him straight down over his knee, and he breaks his back with the pro wrestling backbreaker maneuver. And the bat has been broken. He parries his near lifeless body into the middle of Gotham, and he throws him down in the middle of the streets to declare that he now runs Gotham and that the Batman has been broken. And this causes a big hullabaloo. You know, we've got the local journalists and everybody, you know, speculating that Batman is being killed or he's about to die. And, you know, we see these spreads of, like, Batman lying all busted and bloodied up. And, you know, luckily for him, Alfred has been able to recover, and him and Robin are able to commandeer an ambulance and, you know, go and pick up the Batman. The cops think he's obviously been brought to the hospital, but then they just bring him back to the Batcave. And basically, Alfred, you know, his previous combat medic experience, he's able to come to the conclusion pretty quickly that Batman's back has been broken, and he's near death, and he could even be paralyzed. So he tasks Robin with getting his hands on some type of fairly powerful drug that's going to be able to hopefully stabilize Bruce and just get him in a stable enough condition that he's not going to die outright. So, you know, Robin's able to go to Commissioner Gordon. He goes to Jean-Paul first, of course, to ask for a bit of help, so him and Azrael can take care of some business as well. But they go to Commissioner Gordon, and Commissioner Gordon is able to do some wrangling of his own and arrange for this drug to be picked up from the Gotham hospital. So they're able to get the drug into Bruce just in time, and he wakes up and he is still alive. But the bad news is your back is broken, you're fucked basically, and we don't know what to do with you. So everybody's kind of left in this conundrum because they obviously can't bring him to the hospital, because it's very suspicious that Batman suffered these injuries exact same as we're going to show up to the hospital with Bruce Wayne. So they concoct this story where they're going to say, okay, he crashed his Porsche while he was out driving. They go and take a couple of sledgehammers and they smash up one of his Porsches in the garage, and they used obviously their vast resources there, Wayne Enterprises. They're able to get like a full hospital ward essentially set up in Wayne Manor, and they're able to convince that doctor lady he's friendly with to actually become his own private physician, to kind of manage his recovery, and not just his physical recovery but manage his mental recovery as well. So yeah, we finally see the outcome of what happened with the Bane showdown. He was just broken down, literally.
Yeah, I like that it sets up Bane well. It's interesting because both Jean-Paul / Azrael and Bane are both actually like substitute or replacement Batman type characters, because where Ra's al Ghul had offered Bruce Wayne to be part of the Demon's Head in 80s stories and come and help rule the world with me and marry my crazy hot daughter and take over the world. And he's like, sorry, but no. And they have a big sword fight and all that in the desert. Bane's like, yes, I will. Later stories. And he actually becomes part of the League of Shadows or League of Assassins, depending on what continuity you're looking at. Apart from being a drug addict, he's like, the most similar character to Batman. So he does end up being part of those later stories and has quite a sort of legacy and ongoing stuff. And with Bruce out of action, of course, we've had Azrael's already been introduced around the same time as Bane in his own kind of miniseries thing. He's in the background. And Azrael is like a kind of holy knight with the superhero elements mixed in. And when Bruce is out of action, they're already kind of training with Jean-Paul and ends up stepping in, becoming a literal replacement Batman, like in the same suit where you don't know it's a different guy, the same way that Dick Grayson a few times has been Batman in the comics for a period of time temporarily, and then they've changed back again. Jean-Paul steps in and becomes a new Batman, but they don't know that he secretly is an assassin that's been brainwashed since birth and part of this secret mystical religious order, and that the visions he has where he thinks he's having genuine mystical religious visions are actually part of his brainwashing.
As I mentioned earlier, he is quite the temper on him. It becomes clear pretty early on, once he kind of dons the mantle of the Bat, that he nearly always steps over the line. Like, there's rarely an occasion where you see where he pulls his punches or tries to do anything other than, if not beat the shit out of whatever criminal he's dealing with, he might well kill them as well. Like, that's the type of character he is. He's got no qualms about, killing and maiming if that's what needs to be done.
Yeah, he's more like a Punisher or a Wolverine, but with a religious knight style to him. And he was also created as not just Azrael, but the eventual armored version we'll see, which is on the background image there. He was created as a reaction to the 90s, particularly the Image 90s comic style of superhero that was like over the top. So many of the Image characters were just like just kill everybody and don't worry about it. And a lot of pouches and guns, and not just Image, but I guess like X-Men, Cable, X-Force, all them guys, which is a lot of the dudes that created those guys went on to form Image Comics from leaving X-Men anyway. But he was like another reaction to these sort of characters, and they deliberately showed him as being more extreme to contrast with the regular, Joe Blow, Bruce Wayne, Batman, who was becoming, well, it's hard to think of it now because Batman's blown up so big with films and other comics in recent decades. But back in this time, Batman was becoming like Superman. He was coming a little bit stale, as in like people were kind of losing interest in it. And we're like, oh, here's this old character from the 50s and who cares? He's not cool anymore. We like this other cool stuff from Image and whatever. So he's becoming like your sort of granddad's character, not the popular youthful character.
And it's one of those things as well, I think, with Azrael, that he's drawn so, like, especially I know in that kind of background image we have there, like, he looks so cool. It's nearly
Yeah.
it's nearly like he's the product of, like, and I hate to say this because he's a good character and stuff, but it nearly feels like they got like actual marketers to go out and like be like, okay, this is working in Image, this is working in Marvel. How can we
Yeah.
do this? And like, you can just imagine all the suits like on a whiteboard saying,
His
okay, well, we'll
claws
do
like
a bit of Iron
Wolverine,
Man.
armor like Iron Man.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But he is cool, and he is like
He
whatever
needs to look
way
like Michael
they got to.
Fassbender and have the David Bowie hair.
And of course, once he takes over though that mantle of being the Batman, we essentially kind of get two simultaneous stories going at once. We've got how Azrael is actually handling being Batman, but then we've got the other story going of Bruce Wayne's actual recovery, his like long-term recovery of kind of getting back, even just to be able to like not essentially become Batman again, but just to actually be able to like live a life because he's, you know, he's wheelchair bound, you know, and this is a guy who, you know, obviously was quite physically fit and could pretty much do anything he wanted when he was in peak physical condition, and now he's got a broken back. You know, there's not a whole lot you can do, so there's a big mental toll that's taken on him as well, and that's teased out and played out a lot during his recovery story. So we've got that kind of contrasted then with Azrael, who's just running around causing kind of absolute chaos in his quest to kind of bring Gotham back under control. And you know, like you mentioned, he's got a real kind of vengeful kind of motive behind him as well, which we'll later find out is because of, you know, various brainwashing and other things that have been done to him in the past, you know, prior to him kind of assuming this role. What did you think though, like of that kind of build up of the Bruce recovery to the eventual showdown? Because that's what it's almost like this kind of Rocky style thing of like,
Yeah,
okay, he's getting better, he's
yeah.
getting a bit
Well,
better
if
every
we go,
day.
because I was watching bits of this the other day, let's go Rocky 4. It's like because you've got an Ivan Drago with all the technology, and then you've got the training montage of Rocky, who's like doing it old school. He's pulling a sled in the snow, and he's out in the dirt and the mud and chopping wood. And then like John Paul is like Ivan Drago. He's like, I've got all the technology and all the best stuff and the equipment. And but yeah, we get this eventual building up again of the Rocky style comeback of Batman, and that you've got them kind of going in two different directions. First, John Paul starts off being Azrael, then he becomes regular 70s style Batman in the blue and grey colors. Um, and then while Bruce is out of action, John Paul starts adding improvements to the suit, not unlike, I don't know, Ben Reilly and his Stinger bits and adding things to the classic Spider-Man suit, or Eradicator and Cyborg Superman were adding technology and things to this classic design. He starts adding also blades like Wolverine and claws and projectiles and weapons, and then eventually armor to protect themselves more, as well as being more deadly. So he moves further and further away from being the traditional protector of Gotham, more becoming like some sort of aristocratic ruler of Gotham, or another crime lord, if you want to think of him like as a criminal or anti-hero. Meanwhile, Bruce is going back to basics. He's like, you know, going back to basics, Batman Rocky style. This is before he started having lots more technology stuff, like late 90s, 2000s. Batman had way more gadgets that mirror our own real world stuff, you know, telecommunications, internet, cell phones, and earpiece and all that. So they're kind of going in different directions, but it's fun because we see the contrast of Jean Paul gets more and more extreme to the point where, you know, eventually the cops are going to come after him and want to stop him or end up killing him or whatever. And Bruce has got to build himself back up to be a worthy Batman again, not just for Gotham, but in his own mind and his own psyche. He's got to be like worthy again of actually being Batman after not just being him his body beaten up, but psychologically broken is like the main thing that happens to him other than the physical injuries. I think Mark's frozen up for a bit. I can still see you. Hopefully you can still hear me. So we'll just stick it out and hopefully it'll come good again in a minute. But yeah, John Paul left to his own devices gets like more and more extreme and starts off as being like a Batman analog or being the shoes and mantle of the Bat. Oh, Mark's dropped out. Hopefully he'll be back again in a minute. Oh shit! Now electricity's turned off. He's I'll keep talking for a minute. I'll see if Mark comes back again. Otherwise, his electricity's dropped out. If I have to, we can put a pin in it and continue when it's back again. But I'll just sum up what I was saying and hold for a minute and see if Mark comes back again. Yeah, Jean Paul gets more extreme. He's heroic like Batman to start with, but as he becomes more psychologically unhinged and Bruce Wayne is on the mend. Hang on, he's coming back again. Here he is. He's back in the hour of power. It was too much. It was too much technology. It's taken us over and knocked your power out there. It might have been Azrael himself knocking out your power. I was just saying, like, John Paul Valley becomes more unhinged as he becomes more extreme, whereas Bruce is trying to get more healthy again. And we see the contrast of the two styles of the kind of 70s Batman and this new Image comic style, extreme Batman, Iron Man, religious nutter.
What do you think of the, I suppose, the showdown, first of all, between, because it's kind of once Bruce recovers, he's kind of got two dragons he needs to slay because he can't just go after Bane. He has to deal with the Jean Paul situation.
Yeah,
before.
Like
so what do you think of that kind of obstacle?
He's created this problem for himself to deal with.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like the rivalry and contrast. Like I mean, probably of the Clone Saga and the Death of Superman. Like, I mean, I do like the battle of these two because it's kind of like it's not just a battle of wills. It's like a battle of methodologies and what's the word? Different different ways of living. It's like battle of cultures and methodology and religion and all this shit that causes war in the world. It's like all this kind of stuff coming together.
You think this now? You might know this because you're just more of a Batman expert than me. We were talking about Venom earlier and how it had been introduced previously, and even how Batman had tried it and stuff. Am I correct in saying that maybe even Bane himself mentioned it? It's been about 2 weeks now since I read it, but does Bane mention that the particular brand of Venom that he uses is actually not standard Venom? It's like a special mix or something like that? Or am I just getting a bit mixed up there myself?
I'm not 100% sure. Like, they have the Venom storyline where Bruce takes this drug in a way. Think of like Bruce Lee, like the real life Bruce Lee, not actor, movie film Bruce Lee, who worked out with like the first, some of the earliest cable machines and circuit trainers. And it's not a lot what's on public record, but he tried out different drugs and other shit. And the way that, say, wrestlers took steroids, you know, people try things out to see what it might enhance in them. That was the thinking in the Batman Venom story. He took it and found it made him like absolutely nuts. It was like a heroin level of addiction that makes you psychologically unstable and unable to focus and shit like that. That's why he knew it was no good, and why Bane becomes more unhinged. The more of it he has, either too much at one time or over a long period of time, like any kind of addict on a drug, it just starts burning out your brain and fucking up your dopamine centers and stuff and making you not able to be a rational human being anymore. But yeah, I'm not sure if there is a specific mix for Bane's Venom, because it's sort of, other than that initial story, the Venom stuff's usually always specific to Bane himself and usually around him. So in the video games, they had stuff where other characters, you know, had taken it and became like this other drug and all that. But usually it's centered around him. So it's kind of his special drug.
I was probably getting mixed up with stuff later on that happens in later stories, which happens to me a lot with Batman anyway. I tend to find I'm
the same, because there's so much modern things, and then they've done stuff that's kind of retroactive and that. And
one thing I'd forgotten to talk about earlier, because it does kind of make up a decent chunk of the story as well, is there's a subplot involving Killer Croc and Bane as well, because Bane had previously broken Killer Croc's arms and kind of humiliated him, and Croc is among the Arkham escapees, and he's kind of on his own quest for vengeance to take down Bane as well. I thought that was a pretty cool rivalry between these two kind of strong men. Even though, like, Bane, he really messes Croc up pretty badly in their first fight. It's a bit more even when they fight for the second time in the sewers, but the first time round, he literally kicks Croc's ass and breaks both his arms. So that's pretty extreme.
Yeah, it was definitely like they put plenty of planning in with the Bane thing, but like Doomsday, he was definitely brought in as like a gimmick style villain. Like, he's purely here to destroy the hero. And then you get other stories years later where occasionally they do something else interesting with these characters, but like Doomsday, he's never as interesting as that early first appearances. Once they bring the gimmick villain back again, it's like, well, we can't kill him or break him again. We've got to do something different. It's not going to have the same impact. So it's each time it's a little bit less. He just he goes from being this like S rank villain, now he's down to A or B, because it's just like, oh, here's Bane again, along with all the other rogues gallery.
And then of course we got the kind of mute angry man Bane in the Batman Forever movie, which probably didn't do the character. It was Batman and Robin. Is that the one where they introduced Bane? He's
oh yeah, that was that
Ivy's
wrestler. I forget the name of which wrestler it was.
Yeah, but he's just like kind of character, like he's speaking lines.
Yeah, he doesn't say much of anything. But then in the Tom Hardy version, he has the real raspy, high pitched voice that apparently, when they first released it, no one could understand it at all, and they had to go back and redo some of the audio because it was like too quiet, no one could hear it when it said.
What did you actually think of Nolan's crack at that and how he presented that story?
I thought of the three films, the second one was definitely the best overall film, where it's basically Michael Mann's Heat with Batman, of course. The third one I did see in the cinema, and I remember enjoying it at the time, but feeling like it was too long. There was too much stuff going on. There was too many characters and plot threads. But I thought Tom Hardy was fine as Bane. I thought he actually made him interesting, and the voice thing was weird, but once you got used to it, I'm like, okay, it's different, something new, something different. But I think it irritated a lot of people just doing a weird voice. He sounded like some kind of weird British voice.
I think at the time that would have been, it's a good while now, 2009 or something like that. That movie was, or whatever. But I do remember the time because I had read obviously the Broken Bat, the Knightfall saga. So for me, it kind of felt like they really tried to compress a lot of stuff, like too much stuff into the one film, especially when it comes to
annoyed me is
Bruce Wayne.
They didn't really talk about the Venom stuff. He was wearing a mask, but they never tell you why the hell he's wearing the mask in the film.
Yeah,
I mean, in the comics, it's how the Venom gets delivered from the backpack thing into his mask. But in the movie, he's just like wearing it, and they just don't explain it. I thought, well, that's a bit stupid.
Bruce's recovery and escape from the prison
is like
kind of rushed as well.
Unorthodox underground acupuncture or chiro guy just punches him in the back, and then you're better, and off you go.
Yeah, it's
equally ridiculous in the comics, which I didn't remember. There's like a specialist he sees, like a regular doctor, to help him, but then it turns out, oops, she's got some kind of secret telekinetic powers that you don't notice unless you really pay attention. She accidentally kind of heals him. It was a bit nonsensical.
Yeah, because she heals him mentally before she heals him physically, doesn't she?
It seems very Jean Grey and X-Men sort of thing to be in a Batman story, or even Emma Frost. It's just a bit weird.
But at least, when you do have deep pockets, when you've got Wayne Enterprises at your fingers, it's handy being able to get the old MRI machine and all these other medical devices just set up in your house.
Just get Sandy Newton over and she'll heal you back instantly.
Yeah, exactly. And when you've got your butler there coming up with great excuses as to how you got in this condition. And a good cover story as well, because when the doctor is like, well, look, why don't you just go to a hospital? Alfred's like, because then the stock price will drop. It's like, yeah, that's probably what would happen. Like if you had a billionaire like that who was in a real bad wreck, you probably would keep it a secret just in case it fucked with the stock prices.
The only person I can think of who's certainly not a hero is like fucking Vince McMahon or something like that. But he'd be like, whatever happened to Bill Hush Hush, because he famously nearly been in car accidents so many times, drove like a fucking lunatic.
But yeah, it's like I was kind of saying at the start, I do think this. Okay, so Spider-Man Clone Saga starts off pretty intense, kind of falters about halfway through. Death of Superman starts off well with the good build-up. We get the good showdown with Superman and a decentish type of run afterwards, where we have the various doppelganger fake Superman before we get back to OG. But I think Knightfall overall, it rhymes. I think Knightfall overall, it just does a nice kind of tidier job of doing this kind of long ass story and bringing it all together.
To credit, like people like group editors like Denny O'Neil, who used to be obviously a main Batman writer in the 70s, but through a lot of the 80s and 90s, he was like the overall group editor. So if some young gun writer came along and wanted to do something real crazy, like, oh, let's replace Batman with a clone, he'd just be like, no, you're not doing that. That's just ridiculous. We're doing something else. Get another idea. Whereas over at Marvel, they're like, yeah, great, let's do that.
It's interesting, actually, just because, you know, you're such a Bat fan, and like I'm a fan of Batman too, but other than when we kind of briefly discussed when we were looking back through that Kenner catalog, we were talking about Batman the Animated Series toys. Like, this is the first time we've kind of even just cracked any type of Batman topic at all on the show, which is pretty crazy considering we've got
Batman
this long.
1989 on the schedule to talk about. We'll definitely talk about that one.
It's in the intro.
And I was thinking,
it's in the intro, so it has to be
as a follow-up
about.
to these ones. We could actually have a look at the toy lines. I didn't realize how many toys they made of the Knightfall and Death of Superman stories. I mean, I saw them back then, but there's more than I realized. There's enough that we could do a show and cover both in one show, sort of thing.
Forced though, like in typical fashion, because, you know, the algorithm always knows what you're thinking about. It started pushing the on Instagram. All of a sudden, I'm getting in my For You feed the pictures of the new McFarlane Bane with the glow in the dark Venom veins. He's like, oh man, that looks cool. Of course,
I got the previous Bane they did, and then it wasn't quite exactly how I liked it, and then the next one around was a little bit better. I'm like, no, I'm not buying it again.
I'm trying to remember in the Batman animated series, because I know he comes in like season 3 or 4, something like that.
I think it was in the New Adventures style when it shifts to Robin 3, and they did the different art style. They redid all the art style for all the characters for the new season, which I didn't care for at first, but the art's nice. But apparently, it was some kind of kids' TV network obligation thing where it's a new show, even though it's the old show continuing, to do with like advertising and the network and some shit.
Can't have that old coat of paint. It's got to make it look different.
Yeah, like, you know, year to year and toys and all that. So they had to like change. They were pretty much forced to change things up.
I'm trying to remember though. I don't remember there ever being any significance to his background in the cartoon. Like, I think he was just your typical.
No, he's just another villain in the show. They don't really terribly much with him, and he's a lot smaller too.
Did the DC animations ever do a Knightfall animated movie or anything like that?
No, I'm not 100% sure, because I haven't watched all. There's been so bloody many of them now. All the early ones are pretty good, and they started just cranking them out every other year and getting quite lazy with them. But I don't know if they've done one. I know that Bane turns up in like Justice League and other odd specials and that. There was a decent Suicide Squad style miniseries called SYXX, where he became part of a team where it's like basically like Suicide Squad. They're not heroes, not villains. They get sent out on secret missions and whatever. And I think for a while it even had like bloody Catman and stuff in there. And it was actually quite a fun book. It was quite a fun like anti-hero book where they go off doing secret missions in South America and other bullshit. So they have done some interesting things with them here and there.
Nolan, when they did, it's The Dark Knight Rises. That's the third Nolan film.
Yeah, that's the third
main movie. Because they didn't go with the aspect. I suppose they had no choice because they had never built them up. But there was no Azrael. There was no replacement Batman while the Batman recovery was going on. Like, that entire chunk of the story is just kind of left on the table.
The only thing you get the end of that film, you get the Robin discovering. Well, we don't know he's Robin until the end. We find out his real name is whatever it is. They imply that it's Dick Grayson, basically. But the cop version is played by the bloody Jogo from Third Rock from the Sun. At the end of that, he discovers that Batcave. So the idea is that if there had been a fourth Nolan, that potentially he would have been the Batman, and that's the idea of it.
Yeah, I'm not good at that now. To be honest, you know? Like, as I've mixed feelings about the Nolan ones. Like, overall, I would say yes, they are good. I just don't always find them to be completely rewatchable.
Batman films.
Yeah,
the best Batman film.
Rewatch
the bloody Mask of the Phantasm animated film. That's still the best Batman film. Full stop. Gets everything right about the character, the story, and all the kind of style, the film noir stuff, and then the lost loves of Bruce Wayne, who always end up haunting him in one way or another, whether they die or they turn against him or whatever.
It could be, and we've all the time in the world when it comes to the future ideas for shows. We probably will maybe one of the days look at the Batman animated series, but then so we can do a special look at Mask at the Phantasm, because it deserves its own special episode. It's a great film, a really, really
it's the best one. They did
film.
2 or 3 more. They did Sub-Zero was after that, which is Mr. Freeze, not Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero. They did a Batwoman movie special, which was a bit average, and they've done other ones since. But those first early ones, that Phantasm, actually it started off as a TV film, and then they were told after they started production on it, oh, by the way, this is going to be a theatrical film now. So guess what? Change the entire aspect ratio and just restart everything all over again, because it's going to get an actual cinematic release. Originally, it was just going to be a TV movie. So smaller budget, 4:3 screen, not 16:9 widescreen. So yeah, like being an actual theatrical film, the budget went way up, probably because Batman Animated had a fair bit of money due to the success of Burton's '89 Batman that put a lot of money in the old coffers for DC and spruiked Batman up again, and they started cranking out way more merch and all that.
I know it definitely deserves its own deep dive. I'll give another shout out for a Batman animated movie. It would be Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. Is an excellent.
Oh yeah, actually, that's actually the next best film. That one's quite a few years later, but those two are the two best Batman films of anything.
Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker is actually kind of what got me to appreciate Batman Beyond as a TV show. I was kind of I was a bit lukewarm towards it.
The nice thing with that animated special Return of the Joker was it was MA or rated 15, not PG, and direct to video, wasn't for TV. So they were allowed to put quite a bit more violence in it and more mature stuff in there that they couldn't put in the network cartoon.
Yeah, it was pretty hardcore. And very, I would say Mask of the Phantasm #1, and then just underneath it, I would say Return of the Joker.
Yeah, I would put that as number 2. Then after that, I would put Batman 1989 as just an excellent film, Dark Knight, and then I would even put probably the 1966 Batman film, which is just 2 episodes stitched together. It's actually quite fun.
Yeah, as long as you got your shark repellent with you, otherwise it can be a bit dangerous. You definitely don't have to worry about a character like Bane showing up in the '60s show. He didn't exist yet, but also because if he did show up in that show, he would have been like a camp pro wrestler, strongman,
Yeah, they've done a lot of DC comics in the modern era. They've done a Superman, Richard Donner style Superman comic. They've done a Batman '66 comic, and they've done a Wonder Woman Linda Carter comic. And they've had most of those crossover too in their own little TV universe. They're quite cool.
Yeah, and there's the Batman '89 series, and
so
it's
nice to be able to do those for the long-term fans.
Maybe they'll do a few more of them. I think that they've actually announced they're going to continue on with Batman '89, or at least do a few other stories.
A lot of those started as digital web comics, and then later they did print versions of them.
The versions that I've been reading for when we were doing Knightfall, like I've had these. It's 3 volumes all together. This was just like part 2, Who Rules the Night. So it mainly makes up the main Azrael kind of on the job portion. The first part is like Broken Bat, where it's all about the actual build up and all that stuff. But generally, I would say I would
early 2000s because it's got that swooshy logo in the corner.
That's right. I was reading some complaints online that apparently they did re-releases that had less content in them, so they must have cut out bits and pieces here.
Well, apparently, originally they only collected Knightfall, and then because the overall story was like Knightfall, Night Quest, Night's End. They didn't collect some of the later parts of the story until years and years and years later. So some of the various volumes had kind of bits missing.
The majority of my trades were picked up between like 2005 and 2010. across
That was the
all
best
my
time to get
comics.
them, when prices are reasonable, and
Yeah,
you could get them like after that went out of print for a long time, expensive. You can get new omnibus editions now, but it's still cheaper to buy the softcover smaller trades.
I remember back then the only thing that would act as an obstacle to me buying certain trades would be, can I physically carry this to where I need to go? Because sometimes I go into shops and
I
I
got to
just
read
fill
my
up the
friend's one, the
backpack.
first edition of the softcover trade in the 90s. Like, he had it, so that's how I first got to read it, other than seeing odd issues in the shops.
I remember going into like the Dublin Forbidden Planet around 2006, 2007, and I go downstairs to their like comic and trade section. I'd just be like filling my bag up with like, volumes and volumes. It was just so cheap. It was so cheap to
Yeah,
get the stuff. Like I said, the only thing that was a problem was the weight. I couldn't carry too much shit.
never
But
again. Once it got past 2010, like, prices just kept climbing and climbing and climbing for the same old books. Like, I just, whether out of print or even new editions, the prices just got crazy on comics.
it's become a niche thing though now, hasn't it? To actually
Yeah, for
physically
sure.
read things on paper. It's so weird.
Yeah,
We're
well,
so
if I
old
find a
and weird.
bargain online, I'd grab it.
Have we anything in the pipeline for next week's show?
Well, I was thinking we could take a look at the toy lines that tie in with both Death Superman and Knightfall. Will be an easy show next week, and then
Yeah.
the following week I've got some other stuff planned. So we've got there's too many topics. We've got Street Sharks, we've got Biker Mice. We'll get to them. I'm thinking I might save Godzilla King Kong maybe for January or something. Thinking December, Die Hard 3, Christmas movie. It is now. But at the end of October, we got to do a Vincent Price Corman special for Halloween.
Oh, we got a lot of good stuff in the pipeline then. Clearly.
Yeah, DC started putting out some of these. What are these ones called? DC Finest. These in the last couple of
Oh,
years have
nice.
been really nice. 400-page trades at a budget price with lots of like
Very
just classic
nice.
like 70s, 80s kind of stuff in them. And I've got about 3 different Batman ones now picked up in the last 12 months.
I'm definitely looking forward though to looking at some of these toy spin-offs from Death of Superman and Batman Nightfall. I've seen the odd picture. Look at that.
Excellent. KG Beast. Dominatrix.
Nice glossy looking pages.
Weirdo.
Yeah, can't beat a good collected volume of material.
Yeah, I've not bought many comics in recent years, but those DC ones, I picked up a Plastic Man one. I got a Justice Society or some other thing, and just when stuff's a good price, I grab it. I got that Aliens early as book one. I'm trying to get book 2 of that. The Predator ones are stupid prices now.
Let us know though, folks, anybody who's been watching up until now, did you actually read this Batman Nightfall saga? Were you aware that it was the inspiration for some other Batman stuff, most notably Dark Knight Rises? Have you never read it? Would you be interested in reading it? I definitely recommend it. If you're into reading comics at all, I would say go for it. It's an enjoyable read.
Yeah, it sure is.
Highly recommend.
But yeah, actually, another thing that comes to mind, I wouldn't mind talking about Batman versus Predator at some point, because that's one of my favorite comics.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing though. There's so many topics, and
yeah,
I was even kind of making a little mental list myself. One of the days recently, I was like, we could do, and this is totally unrelated to what we're talking about today, but I was thinking our favorite army builder toys, like foot soldiers, Doombots, Horde Troopers, all that good stuff that
those
we could.
Toxic Rangers and Toxic Crusaders.
Yeah, all that, all those random nameless henchmen that are just there to make up the numbers and get squashed when you need them to do that. So yeah, tons of topics, tons of ideas. We'll get through them all eventually before the end of time.
More off topic comics, I would like to talk about some Astro Boy, Hellboy, Tintin, and Asterix, just because those are my favorite things. But I can do like a combined overview kind of show, so jump around.
Yeah, always willing to learn more about stuff I don't know a lot about, and hear Johnny's tidbits of exciting info and
That's 100%
interesting facts.
true. I'll just check in with that expert that's 100% true. He verifies all our facts around here.
Come on, don't bullshit me.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Bullshit.
Bullshit! You sell it's all bullshit! All
I love when he's like, "You set us up," and his face is like just so rubbery, like Jim Carrey when he says that.
Our number one guy, he's keeping us factual here, our fact checker.
But yeah, we'll catch you guys next week, and hope you enjoy the show. We've got plenty more things, movies, comics, games, all kinds of things to get into. More wrestling topics, no doubt. Can't remember if we're up to Mania around 14 or 15 when we get back to them. We'll go back to them sort of thinking around November-ish.
Oh, look, it's all on the table, folks. All you got to do is turn up and tune in. We'll be here.